this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. Russia has just unveiled a new type of weapon. Nicknamed the Death Ray, Moscow wants to use this directed energy weapon to fry Ukrainian drones and knock them out of the skies. Especially in the aftermath of the events of the last few weeks, where Ukraine has managed to pierce the Russian defenses and has staged some audacious attacks on Russian infrastructure. Moscow has been on the hunt for new and cheaper ways to knock out the Ukrainian drones. Shooting down drones that could be as cheap as about 20,000 American dollars with anti-air defense missiles that are worth several times the cost of the drones is one way of running out of resources and losing the war. So Russia has now begun using its directed energy weapons to take the sting out of Ukraine's drone warfare. Electronic warfare is at the center of the Russian war in Ukraine. And not for the first time is Russia resorting to the use of electronic systems to nullify the Ukrainian weapons. On the 15th of August, Russia unveiled its latest version of the microwave cannon that can knock out enemy aircraft and drones within a range of 10 kilometers. And according to the Russian state media, this new microwave cannon that is mounted on the chassis of the Buk anti-aircraft missile system consists of a powerful relativistic oscillator, a dish antenna, a control and monitoring system, and a transmission system. And it is capable of providing a 360-degree perimeter defense. The repeated drone strikes by Ukraine, such as the one that was attempted over the Kremlin on the 3rd of May, and the drone attacks that were staged on Moscow's central business district, have necessitated that Russia must nullify Ukraine's ability to strike deep inside the Russian borders. And it is for this that Russia will increasingly rely on its Death Ray microwave cannons. But the concept of using directed energy weapon systems is not new. Countries such as the United States, China, France, United Kingdom, Israel, India, Pakistan, Turkey and Iran are in the process of developing military-grade directed energy weapons. Instead of a solid projectile, directed energy weapon systems use lasers, microwaves, particle beams and sound beams to destroy enemy targets. Consider this: the United States in 2014 deployed the AN/SEQ-3 laser weapon system on the USS Ponce warship for field testing. In 2018, a $150 million contract was given to Lockheed Martin for the production of 2 Helios laser units. The Russians too have their own laser-based anti-air defense and anti-satellite weapon called Peresvet. Introduced in 2018, a total of 5 of these directed energy laser systems are active at this moment. In warfare, technological superiority trumps almost every other factor, and the next few weeks will give us an idea as to how effective these new weapons introduced in the battlefield actually are. On the 17th of August, Ukraine began a new recruitment campaign. Urging all of its military-age citizens to overcome their fear. No official death toll has been given, but estimates indicate that in just the last 2 months of the brutal counter-offensive, Ukraine may have ended up losing almost 43,000 soldiers, while the Russian casualty figure has been pegged at 17,500. But Ukraine's gains in the counter-offensive have been very nominal, as the front lines on the map have barely moved. The strategic village of Yorozane, which witnessed some pitched fighting, has been captured by the Ukrainian soldiers, as Kiev appears to be making a concerted effort to drive south towards the Sea of Azov. But in the Black Sea, Russia is beginning to impose a blockade on ships headed towards the Ukrainian ports with greater stringency. Despite the lurking danger of the Ukrainian naval drones, Moscow is said to be monitoring every single ship that is headed towards the Ukrainian ports. This video released by the Russian Navy will give you a glimpse of the level of the patrolling that Russia is now resorting to in the Black Sea. The incident is from the 13th of August, when a Palau-flagged ship headed towards the Ukrainian port was intercepted. The body cam footage shows the Russian soldiers checking the ship for its contents.
Stop it, Jai! Stop it, Jai! Keep calm and listen to me! Sit down, please sit down!
But away from the pitched fighting, back in the destroyed villages of Ukraine, the elderly parents of the sons who left their homes to go and fight are waiting for their sons to return back home. Lyubov is 62 years old. She was evacuated from the front lines when the fighting broke out, but she's now come back to her home after learning that her son who had stayed back to fight has been killed.
The bedroom where my son was killed is still intact, but the kitchen where he must have been cooking something or canning tomatoes was hit by the shell. The wall and roof were destroyed and buried him underneath. We had a large kitchen. It all fell down on him. The conflict will end someday, no matter how long. It will end. But when? How do we know? Us especially. How do we know?
Morning, Mr. President. Welcome. Thank you very much.
The political leaders so far have shown little political will to negotiate and end the fighting. But for those who are caught in the cruel vortex of violence, the hope that the fighting will end one day is what is helping them keep going. Blasphemy is a sensitive issue in Muslim-majority Pakistan. Under Pakistan's blasphemy laws, anyone who's deemed to have insulted Islam could potentially end up facing the death sentence. The contentious issue grabbed headlines once again on the 16th of August when several churches were set ablaze by a rampaging mob of hundreds in the country. The violence erupted in Faisalabad after a Christian family was accused of desecrating the Holy Quran. Nationwide condemnation followed. The administration swung into action and more than 100 people were arrested overnight. Our next report gets you more details.
A rampaging mob comprising of hundreds of Muslim men vandalized and torched churches and homes of minority Christians. The attack took place in the eastern city of Jaranwala in the industrial district of Faisalabad on Wednesday. At least one church was burned, 4 were damaged, and 24 homes were torched or damaged. A Christian cemetery and a local government office also bore the brunt of the mob's anger. The attack was triggered by an alleged desecration of the Holy Quran by a Christian family who have fled the area. Reportedly, photos and video clips of burned pages of Quran were shared among locals, creating an uproar. Police and the Pakistan Rangers were deployed to bring the escalating situation under control.
Relations between Muslims and Christian residents were fine, but they should not have done this act of desecration. Because of this, the situation has deteriorated a lot. Rangers have arrived here. Police are here. Violence and fighting are taking place. Things have been set on fire. Relations have become very bitter now.
Christians living in Jaranwala quickly moved to safer places to escape one of the most destructive attacks in Pakistan against Christians. Gradually, they returned to their homes the next day to inspect the damage inflicted. A local priest estimated that most of 17 Jaranwala churches had been attacked. Christians make up about 2% of Pakistan's population. Languishing on the lower rungs of Pakistani society, they are frequently targeted with spurious and unfounded blasphemy allegations. The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan contends that its blasphemy laws are weaponized to target religious minorities and settle personal vendettas.
Look at our houses, look at our churches, look at our street. If someone did wrong, then arrest them. What is our fault? Why are our houses and churches being burned? We want justice. It was one person's mistake, and they burned all our churches situated in Jaranwala. Why did they burn these poor people's houses? Where are they going to stay? They've lost everything.
The violence has drawn nationwide condemnation, with the caretaker Prime Minister Anwar ul Haq Kakar issuing orders for the arrest of rioters. 129 arrests were made overnight to bring the situation under control. Schools and offices have been shut and rallies banned for a week to prevent more violence. A delegation of Muslim clerics also arrived in Jaranwala, appealing for peace and calm. The onus is now on Pakistan to ensure that its minorities feel safe and religious extremism is reined in.
At least 54 people were killed in deadly clashes between rival militias in the Libyan capital Tripoli. Close to 150 others were also injured in these clashes that erupted on the night of the 14th of August and raged through the next day. The fierce gun battle forced the closure of the city's main airport, while also leaving the residents trapped in their homes, unable to escape the violence. The escalation in the violence comes on the heels of months of relative peace after nearly a decade-long civil war in Libya, where two rival sets of authorities are locked in a political impasse. Our next report gets you more details.
Tripoli was left shaken after its most intense fighting this year erupted on Monday night. Libya's capital most powerful armed factions, the influential 444th Brigade and the Al-Rada, or Special Deterrence Force, battled in several districts overnight and well into Tuesday. Dark smoke was seen swirling over parts of the city early on Tuesday, and the streets reverberated with the sound of heavy artillery. Hundreds of families were evacuated from the frontline areas of the city's southern suburbs, besides doctors and paramedics who had got trapped in the line of duty. Throughout the fighting Tuesday, the Libyan Health Ministry urged the warring factions to allow ambulance and emergency services access to the affected areas and for blood to be sent to the nearby hospitals. The clashes were triggered by the detention of Colonel Mahmoud Hamza, head of the 444th Brigade, by the rival Special Deterrence Force at an airport in Tripoli earlier on Monday. Reportedly, Colonel Hamza had once served as an officer in the rival militia. Late Tuesday, the Social Council in the southeastern suburb of Sung El Juma, a stronghold of the Al-Rada force, announced that an agreement had been reached with Prime Minister Abdelhamid Dbeibeh for Hamza to be handed over to a neutral party. Furthermore, in a televised announcement, the council declared that a ceasefire would allow the transfer. Relative peace appeared to return to the streets of Tripoli late Tuesday after fighting abated. Interestingly, both the 444th Brigade and the Al-Rada are aligned with the Dbeibeh government. Reputed to be the North African country's most disciplined, the 444th Brigade is affiliated with Libya's defense ministry.